carbon tax or cap and trade? How to put a price on carbon was the big topic at a briefing in D.C. today. Senators, their staffs, NGOs, and others heard about a carbon tax as an alternative to a cap and trade system to price and lower carbon emissions at a briefing at the Capitol Visitor Center today. It was hosted by Price Carbon Campaign, Carbon Tax Center, Friends of the Earth, and some other groups. NASA scientist James Hansen there, he talked there, as did Robert Shapiro. He's economist and former Undersecretary of Commerce. Dr. Robert Shapiro is also chair of the Climate Task Force, and he joins me now to talk more about a carbon tax. Rob, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to be here.
We appreciate it. So you spoke today about the benefits of, you call it direct carbon pricing. This means a carbon tax. What are the main benefits? Of course, we always hear it is simpler.
Well, it's much simpler. It's not associated with additional volatility in energy prices, which cap and trade is. It's transparent. Businesses and households will know the price of carbon. That is, know how much more money they'll have to spend if they depend on carbon-intensive fuels as opposed to climate-friendly fuels and technologies, and therefore can make a rational decision about retrofitting their house, about the kind of car they should buy. And for businesses can make rational decisions about whether to make large investments to develop new technologies and better ways of providing alternative fuels. And that's really critical to any serious effort to contain the risks of climate change. The problem with cap and trade is it doesn't produce a steady known price for carbon. The price for carbon goes up and down.
Cap and trade has certainty as far as emissions reductions, whereas carbon tax has certainty of the cost.
That's correct. And it is the cost which is the driver to get people to change their behavior and to get businesses to develop new technologies and new alternative fuels, without which we will not be able to preserve the planet.
So you don't agree with those who say that cap and trade does assure the cap at the lowest cost?
No. Oh no, certainly not at the lowest cost. And there's no economic analysis that shows it would be at the lowest cost. And the fact is, there's another problem with the cap and trade, and that is cap and trade is so complicated and the public understands it so little that it creates enormous opportunities for different interests to get themselves out of that cap.
What about the fact that cap and trade systems are happening elsewhere in the world? All the systems can be linked?
Well, in fact, there are carbon taxes throughout much of the world as well. There's carbon taxes in Canada, there's carbon taxes in Northern Europe. There is cap and trade in Europe, in Western Europe. That's really the only place that has it. China, and speaking for itself, and India and other large developing nations has said unequivocally, time and time again, it will never accept a cap and trade regime. I don't really believe we'll ever get a global carbon tax regime either. I think that the notion of getting everyone to agree to one approach to this is unrealistic. We don't achieve it in any other area.
So you don't believe that the cap and trade system is working elsewhere, including in the U.S. for acid rain?
No, it does work for acid rain.
But it's a different situation.
It's a very different situation. With acid rain, the whole issue, the only issue was to get the electricity producers to adopt known technology, scrubbers.
Technology was already there.
Technology was already there.
That's what's different about this case.
Yes.
And how else do you get to the technology? Isn't that how you get the technology, is by imposing these kinds of constrictions?
The way you get the technology is by giving incentives, by saying this is going to be the price of energy.
Which either system does. It's going to, it's going to give them incentive.
Yes, the difference is that the incentive that cap and trade produces is very volatile. The price is very volatile. In the acid rain program, the price of the acid rain permits moved up or down by an average of 17% per month over 15 years. It was enormous volatility. Now, this was
but you're saying it did work.
Well, it worked to get people to adopt the scrubbers. However, its larger economic impact was very, very limited because it was a much more limited program. It didn't involve the entire energy base of the United States. And plus it was much easier to enforce because it was known scrubbers, and that's all you had to had to establish, and a very limited number of places had to be monitored, as opposed to
a lot more wild cards for
many more wild
what about
cards.
the simple fact that the cards are really stacked against carbon tax? I mean, the tax is so difficult to push through Congress. Do you really think that it has a chance?
Well, I think it has a very good chance, but not simply as a carbon tax, and no one has proposed simply a carbon tax. This is rather a revenue-neutral carbon tax, or a carbon tax shift. We apply a carbon-based tax to energy based on its carbon content, that is based on how much damage it does to the climate.
And you like the Larson bill, which says $15 per ton, and that goes up $10 per year.
The Larson bill is a very fine bill. I think it needs to reach probably $50 a ton over 20 years. But you're
going to say where the proceeds are going to go.
But the key to this is that those revenues are then used to reduce the tax burden on people in other areas, such as the payroll tax or lump sum payments to households. The point is to get people to prefer carbon-friendly or climate-friendly fuels, not to make people poorer. So we want to return the money. So this is not a new tax on people. Rather, it's a tax shift. We are going to tax the things that hurt the climate, and we're going to use those revenues to cut the taxes for people that help the economy.
Support?
Well, I think it does have bipartisan support. There are some Republicans who support it. There are certainly Democrats who support it. Chris Dodd, the chairman of the Banking Committee, is a supporter. John Larson, the number 4 Democrat in the House, has a major proposal. Senator Corker, a Republican senator, has said that he likes the idea of a tax shift. This, of course, is also the policy that Al Gore endorsed in his Nobel lecture.
And you don't think that cap and trade is going to get through?
I think it will be very difficult for cap and trade to get through. It needs 60 votes in order to get past a filibuster.
Which leads me to ask, what do you think we're going to have in hand when if the president goes to Copenhagen in December?
I think that what we're going to have is the commitment of the President of the United States to pass effective legislation, but we will not have that legislation.
Okay, all right. Well, we will see if your predictions turn out to be right. Dr. Robert Shapiro, Chair of the Climate Task Force, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you again.